Hi, this is Kimberly Stamatelos, author of The Compassionate Lawyer, and I have the great pleasure and delight to have one of my dearest friends with me here today. This is Alicia Economos. She is the founder and director of Wholehearted Living. And Alicia is going to talk to us today about, particularly for women lawyers and actually women in general, what it is that we do to ourselves that limits our effectiveness. And Alicia, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet. My pleasure.
Before we begin, I would just like to take this opportunity to publicly thank you for your friendship. I'll get a little teary because I know as women, a lot of times we don't support each other. And we have jealousies and insecurities that play out in our friendships. And that is not the case with you. You're just such a genuine, kind person. I just really value your friendship. So thank you.
Thank you. I feel the same way back at you.
And not only that, your program, Wholehearted Living, which I had the opportunity to take, is such a phenomenal program. Could you just talk briefly about the program, what it is, and how it came about?
Be glad to. The Wholehearted Living program involves 3 courses that people can take. They are 8-week courses, and they are all based on the 3 books I've written. The first one, Your Relationship with Yourself, which is the foundation. The second book is Your Relationship with Stuff, which includes your relationship with food, your body, money, possessions, and success. It includes a lot. And the third one is Decluttering Your Relationship with God. And the whole course is designed to help people declutter emotionally, physically, and spiritually so that they can live wholeheartedly.
And the books that you referenced, those are available on your website?
They are available both on the Wholehearted Living website and also on Amazon.com.
And just in case we forget, would you give your website address for us, please?
Absolutely. www.wholehearted.com.
So, your relationship with yourself, I'm guessing that's a complicated area.
Yes, it is. Most of us fail to realize that we have a relationship with ourselves, and yet it is the foundation relationship for every other relationship we have. And so that sometimes surprises people when they start to identify they do have a relationship with themselves. And sadly, as women, many people see that it's a really unhealthy relationship. And so one of the biggest points in that whole program, in that whole course, is simply to learn to not be your critic or your biggest enemy, which we're naturals at, and instead to learn to become a fan. Or another way of saying it is learn to treat yourself like you would a good friend.
Well, that all sounds awesome, and having taken the course, I can attest to the fact that the results, if you practice it, are very, very amazing, but it's very difficult. Could you give us a couple of pointers on what we can do to begin to become a fan of ourselves?
Absolutely. There are a couple of key things, and one is simply to start to look at our thoughts. The average person, not just female, but the average person has easily over 35,000 self-thoughts per day.
Wow. Well
documented. In fact, that's on the low end of things. So 35,000 self-thoughts. And for the average woman, over 75% of those are negative or self-defeating. And that is just astounding and very sad. And so the first thing is to start to look at our self-talk and to start to learn to become a fan by simply extending compassion and grace and forgiveness to ourselves, again, just like we do to our friends. Another key point is to learn to drop guilt and shame. We have all done things that we are not real proud of. We've all made mistakes along the way. But as we go back and can connect with that clutter and get rid of it, man, we're on our way to being full-hearted.
So guilt and shame, those are probably pretty difficult emotions to deal with.
You know, they are. The truth is we've all done things that we are not proud of, but the tools in the course, people get to practice, and these tools allow them to bring that clutter to the surface and to be able to process that and leave it behind so that your unfinished business from the past can truly become finished business and no longer contaminate what you're moving into.
You know, those tools were so helpful, and I think as lawyers, when we're dealing with clients who are coming into our office, they're usually hurting from some sort of sadness or some sort of happening in their life that has caused them angst. And so to recognize the shame and guilt that we carry and to work through that, I think makes us more attuned with others who may have those issues, and for us to be able to be more compassionate to those folks because we understand.
Absolutely. And in your recent book, The Compassionate Lawyer, as we've learned, compassion has to start with ourselves first. You can give it to other people, but it's out of an unhealthy place unless you have first given it to yourself.
So in addition to that negative self-talk and the guilt and shame and all of that we're heaping on ourselves, what are some other issues that you find stand in the way of women living wholeheartedly?
Okay. In addition to what we've already discussed, boundaries is always a key factor for us in all of our relationships. Interestingly enough, oftentimes when we talk about boundaries, we first think of what others are doing that might be causing us angst. But usually our biggest boundary issues are with ourselves. And so as we learn to value ourselves and our wants and our needs, our thoughts and opinions, we can better understand how to have healthy boundaries and to have a voice for those. And boundaries truly come from a place of love. Lack of boundaries comes from fear.
So could you give an example of a boundary with oneself?
Absolutely. About one simple boundary with ourselves is being authentic and speaking up for what you honestly feel, think, want, or need. And so as you start to establish that boundary, and again, it comes from realizing you have value, that what you have to offer is valuable, that allows you to maintain a healthy boundary.
I find that word authentic is so important to women, and part of what we discussed in the book is that why a lot of women and lawyers in general are suffering is because they're not living authentically. And I'm thinking of particularly young women lawyers that maybe are in an environment where they don't feel validated, they don't feel they can live authentically, they're having to follow the rigors of the firm or whatever. What advice could you give them about finding their voice?
Sure. It comes down to simple self-care. And again, that starts with self-thoughts. So turning that self-talk around, being compassionate, being kind to yourself, but also learning to say no. And I'll back up and say, as you really get clarity, as you declutter your life, you gain clarity of what it is that you want to say yes to. And as you get those things that are absolute critical yeses for you, it makes it a lot easier to say no, even to worthwhile things. But if they aren't in your sweet spot or your bullseye, they're just going to scatter your energy or distract you from what will really bring you ultimately what you want.
I remember one of the ideas that you gave to me was to actually, and I think you actually even did it last week as we help coach each other and keep each other accountable, is why aren't I scheduling the time to do the videos and the things with the Compassionate Lawyer that bring me so much joy? And I didn't really have a good excuse. And as I looked on my calendar and plugged those into the areas, one came up, and my temptation was to say, but that's not billable time, I'm behind in my work, and I, thanks to you and your holding me accountable, took that time, and I can tell you that my productivity the rest of the week was just off the charts. So even that simple tip that you gave me of blocking it in, and then not only just blocking it down, but not saying, oh, never mind, I can erase that and put something else in there.
Absolutely.
Well, that takes a lot of discipline. That simple step can, I think, help a lot of folks.
And you said something that is so important. You allowed yourself to do that, and that was your priority. And because you honored that, you were taking care of that relationship with yourself. The benefit is twofold. It was that, but also you became more productive at the rest of what you did in the week. It's incredible. When you carve that out and make that a priority, other things will fall into place.
One of the other things that you told me at one point in time was that when you're full up and then you have that overflow, it's that overflow where your best work is. So if you're running on fumes, yes, you may be working and doing and crossing things off your list. But when you take care of yourself and you're full, then like a cup that's spilling over, all the good stuff is in that spillover. And that quality of work is just much more phenomenal. So
Absolutely. And I know for me, I had for years, over 15 years, had a home-based business. And so I was my own boss. And yet it was normal for me to push myself through, and I'd say, I'm going to do 5 more minutes of work, and then I'll get to go to the bathroom or to get lunch or something. And I'd go 30 more minutes, and then I'd say, oh, I'll wait another hour, and go hours without even getting up to go to the bathroom or grab a drink of water. That's ridiculous. I now know I would never treat myself that way, but that was normal.
Well, and I guess that brings up a question is, once you go through a wholehearted living program and deal with all of this and have these epiphanies about what you need to be doing, are you cured at that point in time? Do you just live free from then on out?
Don't we wish?
Yeah.
No, it's not a one-time check it off the list, it's done. It is a journey. It is a way of life. When you get rid of a lot of clutter, however, and you gain practice with these tools, it is you're so much quicker to identify and deal with stuff and move it aside and refocus. So it is an ongoing thing. We're never finished. I don't believe we will be until we're done. But no, it is. We are never finished. It's an ongoing journey. But one more example of what it looks like in daily life. As I said, I used to overcommit, overschedule myself. And so one of the things that I now regularly and easily do is say no to even worthwhile people and worthwhile causes. Because again, I'm very clear about where I'm going and what is my priority. And now I choose to make my calendar reflect that.
So it's interesting, as perfectionist professional women, we're thinking we're going to go take this class and then we're going to be all better. And then when we fall off the wagon and revert to some old habits, we start to beat ourselves up again. And that's why I love this concept that you've taught about becoming a fan instead of a critic. Because when you go back into saying, oh my gosh, I'm falling back, then you can just simply say, no, I'm going to give myself some grace. I'm going to give myself some understanding. I'm going to be my fan. You even taught, put your hand on your heart to protect your heart and recognize everything's okay. And then move forward and continue to do it again. And I like what you said is you catch yourself much sooner. So all those times that you would agonize and say, wait, hold on. I think I've gone awry here. I need to get back with the program. And so regrouping more quickly is really great.
And I often use the analogy of a little child learning to ride a bike without training wheels. You of course, as you get on the first few times, you fall. And when you fall, you don't stand up and say, well, that's it, I give up, I'm not meant to ride a bike. No, you get back on the bike and you try again. And with practice, you get better at it. And it's the same with when we become a fan. Yes, we're really good at being a critic. And so when you catch yourself falling back into that ditch, that's an opportunity right there. Not to beat yourself up, but instead, as you said, treat yourself like a friend and say, that's all right. Okay, that's a good reminder. I used to do that regularly. That's not what I'm going to choose anymore. And extend grace and move forward.
And again, what you say, and I agree totally, it's all about the journey. All this lifelong learning and self-awareness and all the things that we sometimes don't take the time to do. Once we awaken to that, it can make our lives so much better. So.
Absolutely. And as you talked about, that overflow. When you are filled up from the inside out, you overflow. And so I am highly functioning, better than I ever did before, but I also feel like I'm at rest. It's an incredible place to be. And that's what I refer to as living wholeheartedly.
I love it. It's beautiful. Well, could you please provide contact information to anybody that may be watching?
Absolutely. It's wowwholehearted.com. And you can also email us at info@wowwholehearted.com.
And for those of you that are interested in the Compassionate Lawyer movement and moving your law practice towards compassion, we're at thecompassionatelawyers.com. So until next time, from The Compassionate Lawyer and Wow Wholehearted Living, thank you and have a great day.